Hey, y'all, welcome to Cross Politic. As we go live here in a couple minutes, we hope you enjoy some of this club member content. And of course, before we even get started with the show, share the show, like the show, and join the club. Why not? That's what this club content's all about, trying to get you into the club. So we'd like to thank all of our club supporters for everything that you guys done for us. And we are going to be in Fort Worth this week, starting on Tuesday. Actually, I leave bright and early tomorrow morning, and our Fight Laugh Feast conference goes Thursday through Saturday. So if you still want to register and attend, tickets will be at the door. So the website, today's the last day for the website to be live, and then on Tuesday, ticket purchases will be shut down on our website. So you have to just buy at the door if you want to come to the conference, and there should be plenty of room for you. We're in a massive 90,000 square foot building, so plenty of room to sign up even at the door. We are also about 8 days from the presidential election, and a great way to love your neighbor is to vote. So, love God, love your neighbor, go vote. And at the same time, prepare your heart with whatever the Lord decides to do in this election. We don't trust in chariots. We don't trust in horses. We trust in God. And so have your heart ready for how he chooses to steer our nation. And if Trump wins, I think the play is we have to fight hard for the next primaries that happen, which should be next May, I believe. We have to fight hard in those primaries to elect candidates who want to abolish abortion and elect candidates who want to fight for Christian marriage, biblical marriage, because Trump is liberal on social issues. And so we need to fight hard, I think, in the primaries. He's also a president and someone who has been shown to listen to the pro-life movement. So I think we have an opportunity to check him if we work hard and get the right candidates in the primary. So be praying for our nation. Enjoy this club content. And we actually, on the other side of this content, we have Michael Cassidy and Davis Yountz joining us for a big update on what's going on with Michael Cassidy's court case with the Navy and everything. So enjoy the show.
So I'm going to ask a couple questions. You guys be emailing me. I'll be pulling them up, and then we'll pull a couple kids up here in a minute. Joe, you actually talked about naming. And it got me thinking. You said God brought the animals to Adam and said, name them. And actually, parents, we kind of do that a little bit. We bring our pets to the kids and we let them name them. Even how bad it is, we just kind of go with the name. We're like, all right, Chuck E. Cheese is the dog's name now. My kids,
Gabe,
we have a sheep.
Gabe,
yeah.
Only you do that.
Yeah, no, I think every parent's probably done that here. Brought animals to the kids.
No.
Really? Come on. How many parents out here? Let's get a clap. For me, yeah, for me. No.
Don't encourage him.
Knox and Toby don't like to encourage me in this whatever I do up here. My kids, we had 2 sheep. We were going to butcher them, and the one just died like sheep. That's just what they do. They just die randomly. And so the other sheep got to be really friendly with our horse Fudge. And the sheep would just follow Fudge all over the place. My daughter would ride it up the hill, and Fudge would be there, or the other sheep would be there with them. And they named the sheep Chuck. So Chuck and Fudge go riding around everywhere. And my kids came to me and said, please don't kill the sheep. We kind of like it now. And so I have a pet sheep, but they named them both. My point is, so naming seems to be, to bring this back to Joe. Naming seems to be actually very important to God in the Bible for his people. And we're in a culture right now where naming is everything. Definition of what it means to love, to be nice, all that stuff. You want to flesh that out a little more?
Yeah, that's definitely true. That Doug talked about the fight over the dictionary. And this is because what you call things does shape how you see things. So oftentimes our naming is a way, it doesn't just, it's not just labeling. It's that the names change the way you see the world. It can't fundamentally alter. You can't, if you name unfaithfully, if you try to call 2 men marriage, it doesn't make it so, but it does alter the perception that you have of that thing. And it's why it's so destructive and deadly. It's why to dignify the false names is to sort of give them more power. It's to give them a potency that they would lack. And so when the Bible talks about woe to those who call good evil and evil good, well, that's the difference between faithful naming and unfaithful naming. Do you see what God has done? Do you see what he's doing, where he's going? And does your name contribute to sort of filling that out, expanding it? Or are you cutting in the other direction? Are you cutting against the grain of reality in what you're calling things. And so I do think this is it's a big deal, and why we shouldn't, at the practical level, this is why you don't go along with the pronoun thing. You don't do it because it's unfaithfully named. That's not their private property, and it's unfaithfully naming the world. So don't pretend, don't lie, because God called us to name the world.
Doug, can you talk a little bit about the battle over the dictionary?
Yes, I would say that all of our cultural conflicts are battles over the editorial control of the dictionary. Who has the authority to name? And that authority to name, as we heard in the previous talk, was delegated to man by God. And that means the only way to faithfully name is if we're doing so as deputies of the God who delegated this right to us in the first place. If we want to rebel against him and sever ourselves from him, we have no right to name anything, and our attempts to name are all going to spiral down into insanity, which is where we are now.
Dr. Wilson, how does like the nomenclature of scientific naming kind of connect with kind of our understanding of sixth-day creation?
Ooh. Boy, it has a huge impact. How secular scientists name things shapes how we see, for example, kinds, biblical kinds. And I think we have to be careful on where we draw the lines. Scripture gives us kinds, but we know from the start that there was discontinuity between the different kinds, but the Bible doesn't tell us what those kinds were. And so we have to be careful and be...
Legacy media is falling apart, and as it crumbles, a void is opening, a void that we intend to fill. The big legacy news networks currently average just 1.2 million viewers a weeknight, and those numbers are only going to get lower. Legacy media is dying, and the younger generation has moved on. Legacy media panders. Legacy media lies. Legacy media does not know what the truth is, and they don't care about it. Legacy media is a dumpster fire. This is why we few in our wild imaginations have started the Fight Laugh Feast Network. Our goal is to take down the legacy media giant of the last 50 years with our 5 stones. We started in 2016 with our flagship show, Cross Politic. Since those small beginnings, we now air on DirecTV. Our broader podcast network now gets over 4 million downloads a year. And our Fight Laugh Feast pub, which includes TV shows like This America, The Rowdy Christian's Guide, Pastors in Politics, and As the Lord Pleases, with your support, many more to come. Our goal is to become the flagship new media 2.0 network over the next 50 years and take over nightly news, sports, sitcoms, hunting shows, and more, all conveniently stored for you in our Fight Laugh Feast pub. We're already reaching the next generation through our podcast shows on YouTube, X, and our pub, while also tapping into legacy media audiences by airing our shows on TV through DirecTV and Xfinity. We have made a lot of progress with some duct tape and a good bit of intuition and a lot of sweat. And now we need your support more than ever. The TV networks have had such a negative impact on our households, and we're trying, by the grace of God, to put a stop to that. We have the opportunity. We just need the army. Now more than ever, we need you to join our pub to help us reach our goal of 1 million pub supporters in the next 5 years. There's no way around it. Competing with Fox and the Alphabet networks without money is virtually impossible. It's cheap for you to join. And when you do, you're combining your small monthly support with a growing army of like-minded Christians. We have thousands, we need millions. So if you want more of the Alphabet network's misinformation and lies, don't join. But if you want to give us a mere 5 stones, then please join the pub, and together we will take a swing at the head of big media, all the while fighting, laughing, and feasting to the glory of God. Oh, welcome to Cross Politic on the Fight Laugh Feast Network. You know, this is the first presidential election where podcasting is actually going to have an impact on the outcome.
Massive.
Amazing.
Massive
I was just
impact.
texting with Steve Dace today, and he's like, yeah, this is just the beginning for podcasting.
Yeah. Joe
So-
Rogan and Trump.
Yeah. Unbelievable. And
Nuts.
Theo Vaughn, I mean, just
Yeah, all of them.
I mean, you go down the comment section and Theo Vaughn's comments as he's interviewing JD Vance, it's just changing everyone's mind right
Yeah,
there.
right,
It's unbelievable. And so I think, you know, sometimes you listen to shows and you don't quite know you're doing it for entertainment or you're doing it for the content or you really enjoy the host, but it's just the beginning of podcasts impacting political culture.
Yeah.
And culture and
Well, it's going to
the
be
church and
it's the
everything.
new center. It's going to be the new center.
Yeah.
And like you get on the train or else
Yep.
you know it's like you still got a record player.
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
like it's like, you know, I mean, it might be
Yeah.
kind of cool for, you know, some stuff.
A-track, you know.
But that's not where the
Yeah.
action is. And 4 days
Yes, that's right. 4 days. We're actually
to Fight Laugh Feast.
half our crew's flying out early tomorrow morning. The other half's flying out on Wednesday.
Yes, sir.
And it's going to be quite. Just
Someone-
pray for details.
Someone just tweeted, is now a good time to sign up?
Yeah.
And I said yes.
Yes.
Yes, now is a great time to
So,
sign
so
up.
today, Monday, is the last day you can sign up on the website, and then after Tuesday, it's at the door.
At the door.
Just come to the door.
Come to the
sign
door.
up. There'll
But
be plenty. We're in a 90,000 square foot building,
We-
massive building.
We can squeeze you in.
Yeah.
We can squeeze you in. I mean, we might, you know, charge you extra. We might, you
You will have to write on your name tag, your name on your tag.
write out your own name tag.
That's right.
Yours is not printed.
It's easy. You know?
But we would love to have you. And of course, Thursday night, kicking it off with Beer and Psalms. Aaron Snell will be there to lead us in singing some psalms, some rowdy Christian hymns. And you don't have to be registered to come to that. You can,
Thursday night's free. Yeah.
everyone is welcome. Thursday night, you do need to register for everything else, Friday
Yeah.
and Saturday, but you can come Thursday night. Everybody's welcome.
Food and beverage will be for purchase.
Yeah, purchase your
Mm-hmm.
food and drinks, and then sing some psalms, some rowdy psalms with us.
And we got 2 psalm packets, just so you know.
2.
Yeah, we got 2
What does that mean?
because we printed up in the program last year's psalm packet.
That
Long
got
story
printed.
short, it did get printed. And so we got this year's psalm packet that was chosen from Reformation Day
Yeah,
and all that stuff.
right.
And last year, so we can sing more psalms with everybody. That's the spin on that one.
Oh my goodness, more psalms to sing.
Yep.
I guess so. Okay. Today's culture shifts like sand, but New St. Andrews College is established on Christ, the immovable rock. The college is a premier institution that forges evangelical leaders who don't fear or hate the world. Guided by God's word, equipped with the genius of classical liberal arts and God-honoring wisdom, with a faculty dedicated to academic rigor and to God's kingdom, New St. Andrews College offers an education that frees people. Logic and language, hard work and joyful courage, old books and godly professors. New St. Andrews College provides time-tested resources that can equip your student for any vocation. To find out more, visit nsa.edu. Real quickly, before I introduce our guests, I just got to tell a quick story. I tweeted this out earlier today, but I was preaching yesterday on education.
Yeah.
And I read Deuteronomy 6, how you got to love God with all you are, and you got to teach your kids all day long to love God.
Yeah.
And I sort of summarize it. This is why fathers must provide a thoroughly Christian education for their kids, and they may not hand them off to be taught all day long by pagans. And this little kid in the front row at church yesterday said, "Kids can't be taught by penguins." So there you go. Kids can't be taught by pagans
and penguins.
or penguins.
Yeah.
Hey, really grateful to have with us our honorary Cross Politic Fight Laugh Feast military attorney, Davis Yountz.
That's right.
Former military officer who now fights a different kind of warfare, defending patriots in the courtroom. Dedicated homeschool father and devoted Christian, he brings military precision and strategic expertise to his work, providing criminal defense for military personnel, federal law enforcement officers, and other defenders of American values. We are also grateful to have with us on the show today Lieutenant Colonel Michael Cassidy, who was a commanding officer of a Marine Attack Squadron. He flew combat missions in support of Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan and Inherent Resolve in Iraq and Syria. Lieutenant Colonel Cassidy has accumulated over 1,700 hours in tactical jet aircraft. Cassidy has been awarded with the Air Medal and Meritorious Service Medal, the Navy Commendation Medal, and the Navy Achievement Medal, as well as numerous campaign and service awards. In 2023, Lieutenant Colonel Cassidy was prosecuted for smashing an idol in the Iowa State Capitol building. He has since accepted a plea deal pleading guilty to an aggravated misdemeanor of third-degree criminal mischief. But in our books, Lieutenant Colonel Cassidy is a hero, And so thank you both for coming on Cross Politic. Davis, Michael, great to have you both.
Thank you.
Well, Michael, I'd love to hear from you on the sort of what we just mentioned, the sort of this plea deal that just to wrap up what happened with the idol smashing. You did your Gideon thing. You smashed the idol. You went. I remember we had you on the show. You turned yourself in. You said I had just smashed your idol. You want me to pay for it? What do you want me to do? And whatever. And there was some charges pressed against you. I mean, a number of other charges. Everything was reduced. Gabe was telling me before the show. Maybe I don't know. You maybe paid $100 or something so they could repair their idol. But
he also got all the hate charges dropped and all that. Yeah.
But just recap for us what happened there, and then we want to talk about the latest thing going on with the Navy.
Sure, thank you. What happened with Iowa is after I turned myself in, after I took down that satanic altar, they charged me with a misdemeanor for criminal mischief. And then later on, about 2 months later, the Iowa District Attorney of Polk County, who's funded by George Soros, a pretty lefty individual, she upped the charge to a felony with a hate crime addition to that, which was, of course, absurd. A few months later, as we were getting close to the trial, the district attorney, they came to us, they said, we're going to drop that charge. They, of course, had nothing to base that off of. And so we agreed to a deferred judgment on a misdemeanor charge for this criminal mischief of vandalism. And it's going to get expunged from my record here pretty shortly, I believe. And yes, I had to pay a fine. And that is pretty much all with Iowa. Everything with Iowa is in the past. But it's a little bit new what the Navy's doing.
Yeah. So the Navy is now coming after you. Is it based on the Iowa case?
Yes, it's in fact what they have claimed. And to clarify, I'm in the reserves. I'm not speaking on behalf of the Department of the Defense. This is all my opinion. Nothing with the Navy. And I didn't have quite as many flight hours in combat as you mentioned. I think there's a slip up there with my bio, but with the Navy, they are specifically going after me for what they called this hate crime. That again, a Soros prosecutor. This is a far left anti-Christian attorney that, and then they dropped the charge. But the Navy has decided that they consider me guilty of domestic extremism. They've used in part of the evidence of, they've had this investigation going into me since Iowa, essentially. And part of the evidence that they gave were 4 tweets or 4 posts from X, none of which say really anything about the Satanic Temple or about their idol that they put. They just talk about me being a Christian, and then historical, presidents talking about Christianity, and then that's used as a negative against me. I want to kind of anchor on that the Navy is using evidence of me being a Christian as a negative attribute. And then what it uses about the Satanic Temple, which there's some, atheist trolls that we could talk about all day about, but it talks about the Satanic Temple in a positive light, that they promote individualism and they're for disaffected Christians, and they promote values such as abortion. And that's what is unfortunately a reflection of, I'm not unique. There are many cases that Davis can talk about better than me, but there are many cases of this administration's policies bleeding into the military at all levels. And you're seeing it in these sorts of absurd prosecutions like is what's happening with me right now.
Davis, it seems to me, your audio might not be working, but let me ask this question and we'll kind of maybe test it live while we're going. But it seems to me that you're obviously wrapped up in a number of other cases like this. You tend to find all the troublemakers, but it sounds like the Navy's going after Michael in a way that's unprecedented, but also it's like like even like, Republican, conservative, values too. It's not just Christian values. It's like the Navy is basically going to make an environment that labels all Christians and conservative Republicans as extremists. See if that works. Can you hear me, Davis? Yeah, we're getting no audio from you, buddy. You can leave the room and re-enter. Davis, that might work.
Check it.
Yeah. Maybe try leaving the room and re-entering, Davis. Michael, let me just toss that over to you. It seems like basically they're labeling you extremists, and they can label anybody as extremists that carry, basically just basic plain Jane Christian values.
Yeah, the prominent thing that comes to mind is over the past, really, it was about 3 years ago, when we had the COVID shot mandate, that a whole lot of people, not just Christians, but certainly Christians were pretty prominent in their opposition to it, to this mandate, that they said, we don't think this is proper. We think it's illegal. Of course, they were correct. And they, some of them put in for religious exemptions. And there was a whole bunch of really just shameful action by upper levels of the, political appointees, and even, other people in their decisions about the COVID mandate. And what's so unfortunate is that, most people, I would say honestly, most people in the military, certainly the ones that I work with in naval aviation, that they're conservative, for the most part, Christian, and for the most part, going to vote for somebody like Trump, and did not vote for what we've had the past 3.5 years. But if you are a career-minded individual, you see what is being set, the culture, the precedents that are being set by this administration, and you know what you have to do in order to stay on that golden path to keep that career open. And if you stand up, there are a lot of people who have stood up and then they got kicked out of the military. Some of them honorably, some of them with a dishonorable discharge on their paperwork. And it's because people in positions of power higher up saw what the direction that we were being led into, and they were happy to go along. Maybe they had some personal, struggles over it, but in the end, very many of them ended up executing the cultural mandates that this administration had decided to put on the military.
So COVID, we always said COVID was a test for something else.
Yeah.
Like, what's it testing for?
Yeah.
And look, it's going after
compliance. And
don't speak up.
Yeah.
Michael,
Yeah. Davis, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Finally. All right.
Davis, there's multiple court cases I think you're working on related to Michael Cassidy. What's going on here?
So there are a lot of things going on. What Michael is facing is the Navy saying that he should be kicked out, not be allowed to serve anymore as an officer because he's a domestic extremist. Unfortunately, he's not the only one. And we've seen this coming, right? The Biden-Harris administration has decided to experiment on the military, to use the military as a way to sort of frame society. And this has happened before, right? Where we sort of start with social experiments in the military. In part, you can make an argument for COVID, but what's happened now is they've created these anti-extremism policies where they're defining things in such a way that and this sounds extreme when I say it, but this is the reality. If you are part of an organization that advocates, this is how they put the language, that advocates against the rights of others, including marriage rights and reproductive freedom, then you are an extremist group. Now, I want you to think about that. Under the DoD instruction and the Army's definition, as it's written, it includes that kind of language. So what that means is an argument could be made by a DoD lawyer that if you're tithing to a local church that actually preaches biblically and actually talks about marriage as being between a man and a woman, or is pro-life, then you could be associated with an extremist group. So what Michael was saying earlier and what we're seeing now is there is this idea that anyone who has made themselves any kind of a target at all by showing partisan politics or showing as traditional Christian faith, and not just like window dressing Christian faith, but actually like they believe it and they're going to act consistent with it in their life, is being targeted as an extremist. So the worst part of this, and Michael was talking about it, but understand an investigation was done by the Navy that we finally got a hold of, parts of. We just still don't have all of it, but it literally criticized and labeled Michael as a domestic extremist because of his Christian, traditional biblical Christian values, and applauded the Satanic Temple as an organization that's for human rights and for tolerance. I mean, the Satanic Temple, all they do is troll Christians. All they do is try to mock the Christian faith and make it difficult for Christians to have any public displays. And yet they were being praised by the Navy. Now, that's just one investigation. There's a lot of fight to be had on behalf of Michael, but understand that's the mentality that has crept into the military that we're dealing with.
I mean, I don't know who this question is for, but I mean, I can't get my head around how we get to this point. I mean, I grew up in the 80s and the 90s. I mean, even like I think of the military, I think of, it's like America and God and mom and apple pie.
American flag and freedom.
I just think so much of this like Americana, and then to get to the point where one of the branches of our military is seriously suggesting that people who believe that marriage is between one man and one woman, who are pro-life and want to defend unborn life, are extremists, domestic extremists, but a satanic temple. Like that's what America.
That represents America.
That represents America. Like, I mean, how did we get there?
How long do we have to talk about it? No, listen, one of the things we have to just look at practically when it comes to the military is it takes time for some of these ideologies to take root. So like your senior leadership in the military, go back 30 years, look at who was in the White House. That was the Clinton administration, right? So even in the Clinton administration, we might think of it as tame by comparison to what we're seeing today, but understand the influences in that, Saul Alinsky and other influences. So you have senior leaders in the military that came in during the Clinton administration. You have senior leaders in the military that survived and were promoted during the Obama administration. Then you only had 4 years of Trump. And remember, this is big controversy as we go into this election where, Trump has called generals weak and stupid, things like that. Well, what is he talking about? He's talking about those bureaucrats that have risen to positions of high authority in the Biden administration. And a lot of them came into those positions with Obama, and Trump, didn't have time or they outlasted him. So that is part of this. We're seeing sort of the combination of what these ideologies do, higher education, all these military leaders, they go to Harvard, they go to these advanced training programs, and everything else we see in higher education creeps into the military because it's all there. And then these senior leaders spend way too much time in DC rather than actually in combat.
I remember during, isn't Clinton when we had was that Don't Ask, Don't Tell?
Yeah.
So, you have like the creeping of like, hey, we won't talk about homosexuality. Mm-hmm. So you already have that
coming in.
Yeah.
Davis or Michael, maybe you guys might have different perspectives on this answer, but has anybody in the Navy or other branches who had some sort of misdemeanor that was going to get expunged from their record, have they been forced out of the military for something like this?
So I could speak to that. I don't know if Michael has any examples, but I've been doing military law for over 2 decades now, and this would be extremely rare. I can't think of another example of something like this, not for a misdemeanor. Now we're not talking about, attempted murder. We're not talking about sexual assault. We're not talking about any of those other things. But when we look at this, if this was a DUI conviction and it was the first one and it was being expunged, no one in the Navy would care, right? They wouldn't be coming after his career, but they're going after his career in this. So yeah, it is not uncommon at all for something like this to happen. And again, remember, even with a Soros funded DA, the state of Iowa decided that this was a charge that was so minor that once a probation is fully complete, then Michael can apply for expungement. The charge is dismissed. It goes away. It's not even on his record. So there's no reason, right? There's no justifiable reason for the Navy to do this at a time when the Navy cannot keep planes in the air. They cannot get enough students through the training pipeline. And there's a pilot shortage. And Michael was, before he was grounded by the Navy, a test pilot for the Navy, keeping, planes in the air, keeping students safe.
Wow. Wow. But I'm just like, as you guys were talking, I just thought of Isaiah 5. I mean, this is a well-known passage, but woe to them that call evil good,
Exactly what I thought.
and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Woe to them that are wise in their own eyes, prudent in their own sight. Woe to them that are mighty to drink wine and men of strength to mingle strong drink. It's interesting that, it goes all the way to, woe to you, when you're getting smashed on the weekends. Like you're on a path, like you talk, maybe this goes back to like, how did we get here? Like you go, it's, little by little, it's very, very slowly. And then all of a sudden, very, very fast.
Right.
And that is just, I'm just still kind of, I don't have words.
Well, if we believe that COVID was a setup for something else, and military members,
But
did
this goes
speak-
back way further than that.
Yeah.
It wasn't COVID.
Yeah.
It was Clinton. It was like whatever. It was like Bush. It was
Yeah.
I mean, it was like these people. This is going on like a lot longer than COVID's
Sure.
like COVID's like, okay, I think we can actually run a massive trial now.
Sure. Right.
I think we've got enough enough squirrels, enough compliant people
that's
that
right.
we can experiment on. Let's do a mass trial now. But I mean, it's
But my point by bringing that up
Yeah.
is there are people that still spoke up during COVID about forced vaccinations in the military.
right.
Michael, is anybody in the military or Navy speaking up for you on your behalf regarding this,
Targeting.
It's a kind of a delicate time right now with the election coming up, and the fact, unfortunately, is that the path forward on this case, because we just found out about this this month, even though I've been grounded, so I haven't been able to fly for several months with the Navy, that this final domestic extremism charge again just came out this month. It's not going to go to the Navy's version of a trial until next year at the earliest. What we're hoping is, if the election goes to Trump, that we get people in the military get a bit of a we cannot keep acting the way that we've been acting in a variety of things, including in regards to me.
Yeah.
If Kamala Harris wins, then that's when we're going to have to start being a little bit more proactive in speaking up with, trying to get this taken care of before a board, because it's still an absurd charge just on its face, without even thinking about any of the who's really at the top. Even in this administration, with having a handful of officers in charge of the case, they ought to be able to say, this is absurd. We wouldn't do this. We wouldn't try to kick anybody out for anything this, relatively minor in terms of criminality, especially like you asked Davis, that, I know plenty of people, and you can imagine, drunk sailors in port, or even not in port, that unfortunately, get a bit rowdy and break things. And this happens, unfortunately, a decent amount of the time, and it gets a little bit of paperwork that doesn't go on anybody's record. You get maybe a stern talking to from your commander, and then people laugh about it and they go on their way. This is different. What's different about my case is not the value of the property being damaged. What's different is that higher ups, again, look at this as being what I did as a pro-Christian action, and that therefore is intolerable. And that is what the difference is. If I had torn down, there's a nativity scene right next to the Satanic altar. If I had torn down the nativity scene, nobody would have cared higher up. They would not have cared one iota. But because this was viewed as a pro-Christian action, what I did, and it was, that is what was intolerable. And so that's really what this whole case over the past 10 months boils down to.
We got Michael Cassidy on the show with us. We got Davis Yountz, his attorney. Michael Cassidy is the hero who tore down the Satanic shrine in the Iowa State Capitol building, and is now facing charges from the Navy of being a domestic extremist because, get this, he's a Bible-believing Christian. If you want to support him, you can start by just sharing the show. Did you know that optimizing both body and mind will support spiritual growth and can help strengthen the foundations of church, family, and community? It's easy for both the hardcore gym rat and the chair-bound book lover to miss the holistic nature found in wellness of body, mind, and soul. At Mount Athos Performance, we understand that true health integrates physical, mental, and spiritual excellence. Our product line is crafted with purity and sustainability and is designed to fuel your active lifestyle and your pursuit of excellence. Ascend the mountain with Mount Athos Performance. Visit athosperform.com/FLF. That's athosperform.com/FLF and use code FLF25 for an exclusive discount. Use the code FLF25 for an exclusive discount. Join us in creating the next generation of health, strength, and spiritual vitality.
I agree that it does seem like if Trump got elected, that this would provide breathing room to change the military culture. But also, it seems to me, or appears to me, that those in current leadership right now wouldn't feel so compelled to go after some of these cases.
Well, that's what I was wondering, actually.
There's kind of
I wonder how much
cultural compellingness.
Yeah, I mean, how much of this is the Navy higher ups like really, really believe in this ideology, and how much of this is incentives and pressures being put on them from the administration?
You know, my perspective on that and what I'm seeing in other branches across the DoD is there is some bureaucratic inertia here, but this is the environment that these people are in. This is what they're being taught at the highest levels is acceptable. And it really comes down to a rejection of traditional Christian values, secular humanism. So, I mean, this is why elections have consequences, right? I see serious continued danger and threat to the military if we have progressive DEI woke ideology continuing to permeate the ranks, because it's not going to get better. Our readiness is going down dramatically over the last 4 years. So, you know, Trump is not a perfect human. He's not a perfect candidate, but he has pushed back against some of these things. And there are people he's made promises to in this campaign, like Matt Lohmeyer, John Frankman, and others, that really could be a part of bringing that cultural change. So sure, a lot of the bureaucracy isn't going to change. A lot of people are going to survive, but there is going to be a culture, I hope, where Christianity, Christian faith is accepted, or at least is not persecuted.
There's some stats that say that, you know, among Christians, it's like only like 60, maybe like in really good counties, 60% of Christians will vote. And you know, that's 40% of Christians
just
are not going to show up, and that's, you know, like if nothing else, I would say be thinking about brothers in Christ like Michael Cassidy. Yeah, be thinking about people like this. Like, yeah, I mean, again, is Trump this perfect candidate? No, but is he going to be directing? Is he going to be building a culture that's persecuting Christians and calling Christians domestic terrorists? No, he isn't. And I would say, think about your neighbor, love your neighbor, get out and vote. Right. Vote. I mean, a lot of you can vote now. So I want to know, but what's the potential consequences? I mean, what does this charge mean, and what can they do if they were to run this charge, you know, all the way out? I mean, if you were to be convicted of this charge of domestic extremism, what's the possible outcome of these charges?
So they're sending him to what's called a board of inquiry. So what could happen if he is found to have committed this misconduct? They could end his Navy career, take away all of his time in service, and he could receive an other than honorable conditions discharge, which takes away all veterans benefits, everything else that he's done and earned, sort of erases it and labels him as less than honorable in his military service.
Wow.
That's incredible.
And again, like, people have gotten drunk and broken stuff worth far more. What was that shrine made out of again? You told us before.
Paper cups and PVC.
Pool noodles were its backbone, and then it was cheap, very cheap material. It was kind of surprising, but unsurprising.
This is not about value of materials.
Yeah.
People have done far worse and are serving happily and are going to finish their careers with all of their benefits intact. And this man sees something that actually symbolizes something
wickedness in this world,
evil, and is thoroughly anti-American and thoroughly against the principles that founded our country. Tears it down, says, "Yeah, I'll pay for it. Whatever. You can have your pool noodles back."
No.
And they're threatening him with his career, his livelihood, his reputation. This is insane.
I'm just wondering, another angle to my question is, Michael, it seems like what you did with the satanic idol was not in military uniform, was not Navy uniform, you were not on the clock with the Navy, but the Navy is coming after you like what you did represented them. I don't quite know my question there, but I think you understand what I'm trying to say.
I do, and it's correct that I'm in the reserves, so that's part-time, and certainly we're still subject to the UCMJ in a way, not exactly like with active duty folks, but I was a normal, just regular civilian that day, and those 2 days that I flew up and then did what I did and flew back. I wasn't even, nothing to do with the military, wasn't wearing uniform, never spoke about the Navy in the days and weeks after. It was other than to tell people my background, but explicitly did not mention what the Navy was doing in the background. So, kind of Davis and I talked about it, and our optimism was that the Navy would say, okay, this wasn't done under the guise of being an active duty Navy person. The Navy hasn't had any PR with this. Let's just kind of, forget about it. You haven't done anything bad in the plane, anything like that. So that's what we were hoping for. But as has been shown over the past several months, and then culminating this month, we were a little bit too optimistic, perhaps, about what the intentions of higher ups ended up being.
So, Davis, this is a cultural issue. You're arguing against emotions and feelings and not so much facts. How do you even begin to try to overturn this charade?
So it's a huge challenge. I think the biggest thing we have to do is just continue to do what we're called to do as Christians, which is speak truth, right? And the problem with our military is we've lost our foundation, just like we have in so much of education and the rest of society. We've replaced biblical Christian faith with secular humanism. So we've lost truth. We've lost that foundation. So there is a lot of emotion and feeling. So what we have to be praying for is praying for an outcome in this election that gets us a new Secretary of the Navy, that we can that can be replaced and actually care more about readiness and being prepared to protect our nation than political ideology, political purity, these purges. But what I will say is, we can hope for those things, but what we have to do is present the facts and the truth. This isn't domestic extremism. This wasn't motivated by hate. The only hate that was involved is the Satanic Temple's hatred of Christianity and of Jesus Christ. I mean, that's the only reason they exist. And again, this is an organization that wants to play victim and pretend like they're some sort of a religious group when they're attacked in any way and say, oh, you're interfering with our religious faith. At the same token, they'll say, we don't believe in anything. We don't believe in Satan. We just do this as a joke. It's just satire. Okay, but then why are you putting up this desecration, this thing that is offensive, should be offensive to anyone who just has basic respect for human life, this Baphomet idol that they put up right next to the nativity scene during the Christmas season? Everything about this was done because of their hatred for Christians and for Christ. And so that's, I think, what's so upside down about this. But there are a ton of good officers in the Navy. There are a ton of good people throughout the military. That's still so much of the force. So we just have to pray, if this goes forward to the board, that we have the right people on the board who will use the law, common sense, Constitution to do the right thing and not be overcome by progressive ideology or just the emotion of how this might make them feel.
Honestly, this is just another argument to vote for Trump. I think Christians are having a hard time, and I think rightly so, with Trump's, basically pro-choice views, having a hard time with his stance on gay marriage. And I think, as a side note, I think the solution there is, so I voted for Trump, but the solution there is, for one, we already know that the pro-life community convinced Trump to promote pro-life Supreme Court. Like,
Right.
they already convinced him on that.
Yeah, and he fulfilled that.
And he fulfilled that. Secondly, Amendment 4 in Florida, pro-life movement, got Trump to flip his thoughts
He was
on that.
at least unclear, and then he came out clear
That's right.
that he was going to be against that.
So we know Trump will at least listen
Right.
to some good guys,
Right.
and to a good crowd,
Right.
too. So I think that shows us that next primary. So if Trump gets elected, next primaries, which would be May, I think are some of the most important Republican primaries ever. Where, in the sense that, like, we need to run abolitionists, like let's end abortion, Trump.
Yeah.
Get on our train,
Right.
and then we need to run, pro biblical marriage candidates. Like let's, if Trump's listening and he's hearing and he's persuadable,
And speak to him.
then speak to him. Let's elect some primary candidates that are good. But it also is important to note, just like, I think my take, I think I agree with you, Michael and Davis, on this, that this is happening because the military is so scared to lose their pension. I think a lot of the people around David Cassidy disagree with what's going on with him. Davis Yountz, Michael Cassidy.
Davis Cassidy.
Yeah, Davis Cassidy and Michael Yountz.
That's a good point, though.
But
They're afraid of losing their pensions.
The pensions.
Yeah.
And so they won't speak up. They know it's a culture that's it's blowing against us. This is the COVID thing. No one spoke up because even though they disagreed, there was a pressure on them and their jobs. And I think the same thing's happening here.
Yeah. I was just thinking, like think about another example. I'm sure you both have done this a bunch, but like, you think about, like, if this was like Black History Month and there was some kind of display about, the courage of slaves and this kind of thing. And then the KKK came out and was like, hey, we're going to put some kind of KKK thing right next to it. And then, Cassidy walks by and says, well, that's wicked, and just tears it down. I mean, would we be having the same conversation? I really doubt it. I really, really doubt it. But Michael, last question for you. I know you got to run here, but how are you doing? Just personally, like you've been through a lot. I think
he's coming to the Fight Laugh Feast conference.
Oh, is
this week.
he?
Yeah.
Oh, sweet. Well, obviously you're doing.
And he spent this time off in the Navy reading Reformed books.
He's about to do really well. But I guess, how are you doing? And then, and honestly, like, how can people be supporting you? What's the most encouraging thing from people that are watching your story?
That's a great question. Thanks for asking. I'm doing well. I certainly, this is not where I envisioned my life going 10 months ago, or 10 and a half months ago now. But I've had people ask me, do you regret anything of what you did? And my answer is no. And that what I did was not, it wasn't to, toot my horn or to get some promotion or anything like that. It was because it was evil, and having that statue in there, and something needed to happen about it, and nobody was doing anything in Iowa about it. And so I waited until pretty much the last couple of days, and I bought the plane ticket the day before I took it down, and it had to be done. So I don't have any regrets about it. And because of that, because I still feel, as I felt then, that it was the right thing to do, I'm at complete peace with it. For viewers, certainly keep your head up, that even if you see all sorts of evil things going on in the world, whether it's, anti-Christian actions against people like me or others, that, don't be ashamed. Don't be ashamed of God. Don't be ashamed of your faith, and don't be ashamed to speak up, as tough as it may be, when you see evil happening. I appreciate your prayers. We do still have a legal fund to help. We kept it up because we thought that the Navy might actually, follow through, and they followed through. And so we still have that Give, Send, Go with my name, Michael Cassidy. So that certainly helps out. And I think that's pretty much it. So thank you for asking.
Absolutely. And all y'all, just make sure you like and share the show as well. Spread the word. I mean, there's people all over the place that it's helpful just for people to know what's going on. We want to shine a light on 100%. These things. I think some of this stuff is being done sometimes under the cover of darkness. People are not bringing it up. And so I think just telling people like, this is what they're doing. Yeah. And you never know how God might use that. So I appreciate you both so much, and look forward to seeing you soon.
In Fort Worth. They're both giving
awesome.
You Fort Worth. Yeah,
awesome. I'm going to shake your hands very soon.
All right, brothers. Thank you.
Have a great one.
Thank you,
guys. If you're single, get married. If you're single, get married.
If you're married, have kids.
If you're married, have kids. If you have kids, go baptize them. I got too much in my mind this week. Conference is happening in 2 days. Excited 3 days.
Come on now.
Until next week, love God with all your heart. Well, actually, we got one show going out tomorrow. So until tomorrow, and then we're off for the rest of the week because of our conference.
Little conference prep show.
That's right. Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is Cross Politic.
America is a country that was founded for the purpose of allowing Christians to do their duty before God, not to have their consciences ruled by the doctrines and commandments of men. Reese Fund exists in order to see the 10 Commandments properly applied, not just as a plaque on the wall, but to actually be used in business as though they're commandments from God that we're supposed to obey. Our goal is to find businesses and to buy them and to build them up. We want to find manufacturing businesses and use them to make sure that we can maintain our capacity to do things here. Reese Fund, Christian capital, boldly deployed.
The American church really is gay.
Are you asking me out on a date?
Effeminate.
The Bible appears more to whisper when it comes to sexual sin.
Shallow.
I said, I want the African American 7.
And full of cowardly leaders.
Are we going to keep bickering over secondary issues?
America desperately needs to return to the Father. Either we fall on the rock and are broken, or we fall on the ground and are crushed under that rock. To fall on top of the rock and be broken is exactly the condition in which God brings reformation and revival. So which way is it, prodigal America? Are you coming home to the Father? Join us this Reformation Day in Fort Worth, Texas, October 31st through November 2nd at Will Rogers Event Center, just days before our presidential election. And join with the thousands of us for the blessing of gathering together with God's people and celebrating God's goodness with beer and psalms. Hear from speakers such as Dr. James White, Pastor Toby Sumter, Pastor Doug Wilson, Dr. George Grant, Gabe Knox, Steve Dace, and more. Don't forget our Business Makers Conference, Jumpy Castles for the kiddos, after parties, single events, the Pastor's Luncheon, the Business Leaders Luncheon, and many more surprises coming. America has squandered her inheritance far too long. It's time she repents and returns home to her Father. Fight, Laugh, Feast presents Prodigal America.